Okay, so I've had to create another video because I managed to stop the other one. Okay, so I was discussing the fact that once you've stated the three factors that one needs to look at in order to determine whether a reasonable person would have taken steps to prevent the harm, you also need to explain the judge how to weigh these factors. So in law, you need to give the judge the formula, and you also need to explain how the formula is applied. Okay, because another person might have a different interpretation of how the formula is applied, and you need to rely on case law and say, hey judge, or hey examiner, in this case this is how the formula is applied, and therefore this is the right formula to apply, and this is the right way in which we're going to apply the formula. So here, this is how you weigh the different um, events or scenarios. It says that the magnitude of the risk is the outcome of the interrelationship between the possibility of harm and the possibility of that harm eventuating. Okay? If the likelihood of the harm occurring is great, the harm is normally foreseeable. So what they're saying is that if the likelihood of the harm actually occurring is great, then the harm is usually foreseeable, right? A reasonable person would actually foresee the possibility of harm. Put yourself in a position of a reasonable person for a second. If there is a likelihood of harm eventuating, then you are probably, as a reasonable person, would foresee the possibility of harm actually happening as well. However, they say they also add, however, where the risk of harm is very small, so the likelihood of harm is very small, the conclusion might be that the harm is not foreseeable at all, unless the harm that might eventuate is potentially serious. Okay, so what they're saying is that in cases where the likelihood of harm is very small, then the foreseeability of harm might not be there, unless the harm that might eventuate is potentially serious. So in this case, you got both these two scenarios. You got likelihood of harm, which is great. You got the extent of the damage, which is likely to be, is also great. Therefore, we say a reasonable person would have taken steps or would have foreseen the possibility of harm actually occurring. So you needed to weigh these factors as well in your discussion of reasonable foreseeability. So you can't just say, looking at the scenario and say they are drunk, they are racing, therefore a reasonable person would have foreseen the possibility of harm. No, there's a formula that you need to apply, and that formula has a particular way of being applied, and you need to tell the judge how to apply that formula. And in this case, I've just explained that the likelihood of the harm occurring is great because they're under the influence, they are drag racing. The extent of the damage is likely to be great as well. Why? Because they are children, and we there's cars that are involved, and they're driving at great speed. So that's what you needed to do. Then secondly, you're going to go to the next point. The next point is the following: would a reasonable person in the position of the defendant have taken steps to prevent the harm? And the answer in this case is that a reasonable person in the position of the defendant would have taken steps to prevent the harm. Why? Because we need to apply